Good morning, my YouTube viewers. It's Palestine here. Welcome to my channel. I was not expecting to make a video so soon because I just made 2 videos yesterday. But I wanted to discuss my disappointing dinner date last night. That was a Tuesday. And so normally we would go to Queen's Arms on a Tuesday and get a free meal. But this friend of my boyfriend's wanted to make us dinner. And he said that he was going to make butter chicken. And when he said he was going to make butter chicken, I said, okay, yeah, we can come, even though we normally do something else on a Tuesday. And then so after he said he was going to make butter chicken, he changed his mind and said he was going to make a shepherd's pie. And I thought, okay, well, I already agreed to go, so okay. And then, so yesterday he phoned up and my boyfriend and said he was fixing a slice and what kind of slice would I like. Well, I didn't know anything about it. I thought he was going to make a chicken casserole or something like that. And then he asked, will my boyfriend bring some potatoes because his potatoes are rotten, and will my boyfriend bring some drinks. So bought the potatoes and 2 big bottles of drinks, like 1 lemonade and 1 ginger beer and a cake. And so it must have been about 6 pounds. And I wasn't very happy about that because I wouldn't invite somebody over to my house for dinner and ask them to bring lots of things to make the dinner. If I didn't have the capability to make somebody a dinner, I wouldn't invite them over. And that's pretty much the situation that I'm in now because I have a very tiny apartment, a very tiny kitchen. I don't even have a cooker. So I don't have the facilities to fix dinner for people. So I can fix the dinner for 1 person. Maybe 3 people will fit in this kitchen, but no more than 3. So I don't invite people over because, number 1, I haven't got the money to be buying food for other people. And number 2, I haven't got a cooker. And number 3, my kitchen is really small. So I wasn't very happy about that. I wouldn't invite somebody over for dinner and then ask them to bring lots of food and stuff. And this guy has a girlfriend. She said she was going to have to bring her own lemonade, and she said that she didn't have any money left over, so she was going to have to drink water. So we got a big jug of lemonade for her, a big jug of ginger beer for us, a piece of cake, and potatoes, which is what he asked for. And I would think that was around 6 pounds. The potatoes, I think, were $1.85, and then the 2 drinks would be 2 pounds, and then the cake would be a pound. So that would be 5 or 6 pounds right there. So we get there, and so I have to go to the bathroom. Well, he's not got any toilet paper in his bathroom. So I had to take my own tissue. I had a tissue in my bag so I could go into the bathroom because after we'd been walking around town, because I had to go to Superdrug and get some more fungus medication for my finger. So, and my toenail. I can't show you my toenail, but my toenail's in worse condition than my finger is. And then I had to get my prescription, and then we had to go to Sainsbury's and get a few things at Sainsbury's, a few things for myself in addition to the things for this guy. And I told my boyfriend, I said, I'm not paying for it. I said, I'll pay for stuff for me and you. I said, we'll get separate baskets. I said, I'll pay for the stuff for me and you, but I'm not paying for stuff for this guy. My boyfriend had to pay for that. I wasn't going to pay for it. If we do anything with his friend, then my boyfriend has to pay for it. So we got there. I had to use my own tissue to go to the bathroom. And he said, oh, I've got toilet paper in my room. I said, well, I didn't want to go in your room. I didn't think it would be allowed for me to go in his room. So I still didn't click on to what we were having for dinner, but it took him 2 hours. It took him 2 hours to make the potatoes, and the only thing that he cooked was the potatoes. And he boiled the potatoes, and then he fried them in oil, and then he poured the oil out, and then he fried them some more to make them crispy. So at least they know how to cook potatoes. But because he likes potatoes, he cooked the potatoes. And it was a pretty good sized bag of potatoes, and not very many people got very many potatoes, so that big bag of potatoes didn't go very far. And then so while it's taking him this 2 hours to cook the potatoes, and by this time I'm hungry, and this friend came, and the friend came from a family that's really well-to-do, really well off, and everything like that. But I think that he hasn't made good decisions in his life, so he's wound up homeless. One time he told my boyfriend that he flunked out of medical school, and then now he's been accepted to law school in the town that we live in. And so basically he was over there. He's a nice enough guy and everything. And he said that he had been on Facebook looking for a woman, Facebook dating. I'd never heard of that. But he said he'd been looking for a woman on Facebook dating. And he said that all these women were really bland. And I said, well, what do you want? Do you want somebody wild and crazy? So there are lots of crazy women at the handouts if that's what he's looking for. And then I said to him, well, what are you looking for? Are you just looking for a hookup? And he said, no, he wasn't looking for a hookup. He wanted a relationship, but he doesn't want somebody who's really bland, And apparently his father's really wealthy, but apparently his father won't help him. So something has happened in that regard. And then so he was talking about how he had this iPhone, and he said, oh yes, my iPhone's worth £1,000, but I got it on discount for $700. So if this guy's homeless, living in a tent, why is he spending £700 on an iPhone? And then he said, every time a new iPhone comes out, I go to the iPhone shop and trade my iPhone in to get the newest iPhone. Well, if you're homeless, living in a tent, why do you need an iPhone? I use an Android. I have an Android phone. I can't even afford an Android phone because I was thinking about just buying a new phone rather than having a contract. And a new Android phone, cheap one, is £400. And then so when I went to Vodafone, they just told me, they said, well, you get 3 years tax-free credit. No, 3 years interest-free credit. So I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and get it on a contract because I can't afford a phone, really. But he said I get 3 years interest-free credit, so okay. And then so he was talking about this iPhone and how, he only paid £700 for a phone that was worth £1,000. And every time a new iPhone comes out, he goes to the iPhone store and trades his iPhone in. If I was homeless, living in a tent, and my parents weren't helping me, I wouldn't be worried about getting an iPhone. I'd have a cheap Android, which is what I've got. I've got a Samsung, and although it costs a lot of money, they said it's the cheapest one they have because Samsung has the A range is the budget and the S range is the more expensive one. So I always go for the budget. And then at the moment, I'm on a 3-year contract, so I have to pay for this phone for 3 years, but they told me that I'll have interest-free credit for 3 years. And then he was talking about this Rolex. He said that he had a car. I don't know if he still has a car. I don't know what happened to that. And then he said that he had a Rolex that his dad got him. He said that he had to sell the Rolex. Even had pictures of the Rolex. And I had to bite my tongue because I really wanted to say to him, material possessions don't mean anything to me. Because I've been through so much hell in my life, so much crap in my life. I've been homeless that I don't really care about a Rolex. I don't really care about an iPhone. I want to get the cheapest thing that I can get and survive. I don't go for name brands. But I didn't say material possessions don't mean anything to me, but they don't. And then they were talking about my boyfriend's friend says he only has to have name brand products, that his closet is full of name brand clothes, and he can't get anything more in his closet. And he said he has 60 pairs of jeans. Well, why do you need 60 pairs of jeans? And I just said, well, I cannot afford to get name brand products. I can't. I had been getting my clothes at handouts, but Queen's Arms isn't giving out clothes anymore. So I have to go to Poundland, Primark, and charity shops and maybe Swag to get my clothes. I can't buy anything name brand. I don't have the money to buy anything name brand. If you saw my video yesterday, I showed you how much money I had to pay just to have a roof over my head, you know. And then, so they were talking about name brand products and stuff like that. And so I was just being polite. Well, not only did we not get any toilet paper to go to the bathroom, I had to use a tissue in my bag. But I asked him, I said, have you got a cup so I can pour my drink in a cup and glass? And he says, no, I don't have any glasses. He says, I've got some cups in my room. But he didn't go into his room to get the cups. I didn't feel comfortable going into his room because I wasn't invited to go into his room. So I had my bottle of water, and I drank everything in my bottle of water, and I poured this juice, this ginger beer, into my bottle of water. And my boyfriend and I were taking turns swigging off this bottle of water because he didn't even have the courtesy to get us a cup. He said he didn't have any glasses, but he could get us a cup. We didn't even get a cup, you know. So I told my boyfriend, I said, next time we go over to his house, we're going to have to bring our own cups. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Why do you invite people over to your house for dinner when you don't have toilet paper in the bathroom, so they have to bring their own toilet paper? You don't have glasses and cups, so they have to bring their own glasses and cups. Why are you inviting people over? So then it came time for the dinner. And then when it came time for the dinner, he put the plate in front of me. It was a chicken slice, baked beans and tomato sauce, Yorkshire puddings, and potatoes. The only thing that he cooked was the potatoes, and that's because he likes potatoes. The Yorkshire puddings, he just put them in the oven for 10 minutes. The slice, he just put it in the oven for 10 minutes. The baked beans and tomato sauce, it was in a can, so he just poured the can, he just heated up the baked beans and tomato sauce. He didn't cook dinner for us. I could have done a better job for that. I just looked at that and I was shocked. And I was actually really mad because I was thinking to myself, I gave up a meal at Queen's Arms for this. And it was 7:30 when we finally got the meal. It was 7:30 when we got a meal that all he did was just stick in the oven for 10 or 20 minutes. The only thing that he cooked was potatoes. And by this time I was hungry and I only got one slice and it was small. I got Yorkshire puddings. Why? Why did he have Yorkshire puddings on this plate? He just took whatever he had in his freezer, and that just happened to be something that he had in his freezer. And then so about 8:20, after I didn't eat the beans. I don't like beans. I'll have beans in chili, but for the most part, I don't like beans. If they're in chili, I'll eat them, but that's it. And so by 8:20, I said, well, we need to go because this girlfriend, my boyfriend's friend's girlfriend, traveled from Didcot, I think, to see him. She takes the train to see him. I said, let's leave so they can have some time together. And so we left, but I was just an excuse, really. I just wanted to go home, really. I was really upset. And then so he made a sandwich for this homeless guy living in a tent with a 700-pound iPhone. And he said, well, I'll make you a sandwich before you go. So he made a sandwich because obviously the girlfriend had traveled over from Didcot to see him. So she needed to have some time to spend some time alone with him. And we got out. And as soon as we were out of hearing range, I just told my boyfriend, I said, that was a very disappointing meal. I said I would not invite someone over to my house and fix him a meal like that. I said that's something that a babysitter would fix a child that she's babysitting. And my boyfriend was quite surprised because he said he liked the meal. So I just said I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't invite someone over to my house for dinner and ask them to bring food. I wouldn't not give them toilet paper so they can wipe their bottom when they go to the bathroom. I would not give them a glass. And so they didn't even have any glasses. They were just this big 2-liter jug, just swigging out of this big 2-liter jug. I mean, they think they're classy. I mean, I told my boyfriend, I said that was a very lower working class meal. I mean, I don't profess to be upper class or high class or anything like that, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't invite someone over for dinner and ask them to bring food and not give them any toilet paper so they could wipe their bottom, and not give them a glass so they could put their drink in a glass. We had to bring our own drinks as well, and give them a plate of something that I had just heated up in the oven for 10 minutes, except for the potatoes. He did cook the potatoes because he likes potatoes. It took 2 hours for him to cook the potatoes. So by the time we got food, it was like 7:30 and I was hungry. And I wasn't very happy. And then so I gave my boyfriend the beans. I said, you can have the beans. I don't want the beans. I don't like the beans. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you didn't like beans. Mike didn't tell me. And I mean, it was just a farce. It was a farce. And so I didn't like the meal. I gave up a free meal at Queen's Arms to go to that meal, which I'm upset about. And then I just wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't just take one. I haven't got a freezer, but just take whatever stuff I had in the freezer and heat it up and say, here you go, here's your dinner. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't invite someone over. If the situation was that bad, where all I had to do was take whatever I had in the freezer and put it in the oven for 10 minutes, I wouldn't invite them over. And then so this guy's talking about how much money he's got and stuff like that. He could easily afford to buy potatoes. He could easily afford to buy drinks and stuff like that. He just wanted my boyfriend to bring potatoes and drinks over, and then we bought the cake. It was a piece of cake from Sainsbury's. Yeah, it's a good thing we did get the cake because I didn't have much to eat. All I had was a slice, a tiny roast potato, or maybe it was 2, and I had a Yorkshire pudding. I didn't even want their Yorkshire puddings. He just took whatever he had in the fridge and put it and heated it up for 10 minutes. And so I told my Sikh friend, and he was shocked. He couldn't believe it. He said, don't go over there. Don't go over there. And I was really upset. I was upset because I gave up a meal at Queen's Arms, which probably would have been a better meal to have that meal. I would call it a lower working class meal, if that. Can you imagine being invited for dinner and everybody's got a big 2-liter bottle of Coke just swigging out of it, and they don't give you a glass to put your drink in your glass? I just happened to have a bottle of water in my bag, so I drank all the water and poured the ginger beer in the bottle, and Mike and I both were drinking out of that. It's just appalling, and I was really upset, and I told my boyfriend, and he just said that he enjoyed the meal. Well, I didn't enjoy the meal. And then he just said that, I just said, well, you've been hanging around this other guy for 40 years, so you're accustomed to his bad manners, so you don't know what bad manners is, but that was it. That was my very disappointing meal. So I'm going to go ahead and close this video because I have a few things to do before I go to my day job. I just wanted to update you on my disappointing dinner date, 28 July 2026. Thank you for watching my video. And if you like my video, please like, subscribe. Thank you so much for taking an interest in my very pathetic life.